In a small, quiet house lived Mira, her husband, their 7-year-old son, Rohan, and her mother-in-law. From the outside, they looked like any other family. But within the walls of their home, a silent struggle was brewing. Mira felt overwhelmed. Her mother-in-law, once a strong and independent woman, had become increasingly frail and forgetful with age. Her constant needs, her repetitive stories, and her wandering at night left Mira exhausted. She felt like she was losing herself, trapped in an endless cycle of caregiving with no respite. One night, after a particularly trying day, Mira felt she was at her breaking point. Desperate for a full night's sleep, a dangerous idea took root in her mind. She remembered the sleeping pills prescribed for her own occasional insomnia. "Just a small piece," she whispered to herself, crushing a tiny fragment of a pill into her mother-in-law's nightly glass of warm milk. That night, the house was silent. Blissfully, peacefully silent. Mira slept deeply for the first time in months, and a sense of relief washed over her. This became her secret, her nightly ritual, a tiny piece of a pill for a night of peace. She justified it, telling herself it wasn't hurting anyone. Her mother-in-law was sleeping soundly, and she was finally getting the rest she so desperately needed to be a good wife and mother. Weeks turned into months. The secret routine continued, and the silence at night became the new normal. Mira started to feel like herself again. She had more energy for Rohan, more patience with her husband. She convinced herself that what she was doing was a necessary evil, a small compromise for the well-being of her entire family. She never considered the what-ifs, never thought about the risk. The deception was carefully hidden, a dark thread woven into the fabric of their daily lives. The glass of milk, once a symbol of care, had become a vessel for her deceit. She had grown comfortable, complacent, and blind to the precipice she was walking along. One afternoon, Mira was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Rohan came running in from the garden, thirsty and flushed from playing. "Mom, I'm so thirsty. Can I have some milk?" he pleaded, his bright eyes looking up at her. "Of course, sweetheart," Mira said, distracted by the sizzling pan on the stove. "There's a glass on the counter. It's for Grandma, but you can have it. I'll make her another one later." She didn't give it a second thought. It was a simple, everyday moment. Rohan, being a helpful boy, saw the glass of warm milk prepared for his grandmother, and without a second thought, drank it all down. "Yummy, thanks, Mom," he said, and ran back outside to play. Mira smiled, unaware that the world as she knew it was about to shatter. An hour later, her husband came home and asked, "Where's Rohan?" Mira called his name, but there was no answer. A knot of unease began to form in her stomach. They searched the garden, the street, their voices growing more frantic with each passing second. Finally, her husband found him. Rohan was curled up in his bed, looking like he was peacefully asleep. "He must have been tired," her husband said, relieved. But as Mira looked at her son, a cold, terrifying dread washed over her. He was too still, too pale. His breathing was shallow, almost non-existent. She shook him, but he was unresponsive, and then she remembered the milk. The glass of milk on the counter, the pill. The rush to the hospital was a blur of panic and sirens. Every second felt like an eternity. Mira sat in the sterile, cold waiting room, her husband pacing back and forth, her mother-in-law weeping silently. The weight of her secret pressed down on her, suffocating her. This was her fault. Her desperation for a good night's sleep had led to this nightmare. The doctor's words were a blur of medical terms, but the message was clear. Rohan was in critical condition. They had to pump his stomach. He was fighting for his life. In that moment, watching her small, innocent son lying in a hospital bed, connected to a web of tubes and monitors, Mira's self-deception crumbled into dust. The hours ticked by, each one heavier than the last. Mira couldn't pray. She felt she had no right to. She could only stare at her son's small, still form and confront the terrible truth of what she had done. The silence she had craved at home had been replaced by the deafening, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor, a sound that was both a torment and her only hope. She saw the reflection of her actions not just in her son's fragile state, but in the worried face of her husband and the tear-streaked face of her mother-in-law, the very person she had wronged. The peace she had bought for herself had come at an unthinkable price. It wasn't peace at all. It was a poison that had now infected her entire family. Miraculously, after what felt like a lifetime, Rohan's condition stabilized. The doctor said he was a strong boy and he would recover. The relief was so immense it brought Mira to her knees. When they were finally alone with her sleeping son, she broke down completely. Through her sobs, she confessed everything to her husband. She told him about her exhaustion, her desperation, and the terrible secret she had been keeping for months. She expected anger, accusations, and blame. But her husband simply held her, his own tears mixing with hers. He didn't condone what she did, but he saw the pain and desperation that had driven her to it. He saw his wife, not a monster. Going home was the hardest part. The house felt different, haunted by what had almost happened. That evening, Mira knelt before her mother-in-law. With tears streaming down her face, she confessed everything, begging for forgiveness. The old woman looked at her, her eyes filled not with anger, but with a deep, knowing sadness. She reached out a frail, trembling hand and placed it on Mira's head. "My child," she whispered, her voice raspy. "We are family. We take care of each other. When you are tired, you must tell me. When you need help, you must ask." In that moment of forgiveness, Mira finally understood. The solution wasn't to silence her problems or hide from them. It was to face them together, with honesty and compassion. From that day on, everything changed. Mira and her husband worked as a team. They hired a part-time caregiver to help during the day, giving Mira the respite she needed. Mira started talking to her mother-in-law, truly listening, not just hearing. She learned about her fears, her loneliness, and her memories. She discovered that beneath the frail exterior was still the strong, loving woman who had raised her husband. The silence in the house was no longer something Mira craved. Instead, their home was filled with conversation, with laughter, and sometimes with the shared burden of a difficult day. Mira learned that true peace isn't found in a quiet house, but in an honest heart. Her terrible mistake, born from desperation, had almost destroyed her family, but through a painful lesson and the power of forgiveness, it ultimately brought them closer, bound by a love that was stronger and more resilient than ever before. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that makes you think. Take care of each other.